Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to really immerse ourselves in fundamental source material, looking for that deep, actionable knowledge. And today, well, we are tackling what many see as maybe the most dense, the most crucial piece of prophetic teaching from Jesus himself, the Olivet Discourse. This was delivered privately, just days before his passion. It gives us this incredibly detailed roadmap about signs, judgment, and crucially, readiness.
Oh, it's absolutely indispensable.
Yeah.
If you're trying to grasp sort of the flow of history and what the future holds, Matthew 24 is where you have to go. But, let's be honest, it's also one of the most challenging interpretive puzzles in the Gospels. Jesus seems to weave together events spanning centuries.
Right. So our mission today isn't just to, list future events. We want to fully unpack the signs, the warnings, the commands, make sure we connect this ancient text to us today.
Yeah.
Actionable takeaways.
Exactly. And the context is key. Jesus has just finished chapter 23, hitting the religious leaders with these, frankly, brutal public denunciations. It culminates in declaring judgment, the mood. Heavy.
Definitely. Then it pivots. He moves to this private chat, just with the core four, Peter, James, John, Andrew. And the theme running through it all, judgment. It's coming.
Yeah, so the scene kicks off with Jesus physically leaving the temple complex. It's symbolic, too. He'd just told the leaders, Matthew 23:38, "Behold, your house is left unto you desolate." Now, chapter 24, he walks out. He's making that desolation real, in a way.
I just try to imagine hearing that. These disciples grew up seeing the temple as the absolute center of everything, so naturally they try to maybe change the subject, point out the buildings.
Yeah, pull them out of that gloomy mood, perhaps. Look at these amazing buildings. And they were amazing. This wasn't just any building. It was Herod the Great's masterpiece, over 40 years in the making.
A global landmark, really.
Absolutely. Josephus, the historian, he describes it as just breathtaking. White stone, massive gold gates from a distance, like a snow-covered mountain topped with gold. For the Jewish people, this wasn't just architecture. It was, their identity. They thought it was invincible. Quoting Jeremiah 7:4. The Messiah was supposed to rule from there forever.
Okay, that context makes Jesus' next words just land like a bomb. He's directly correcting this core belief that the physical building equals God's permanent favor.
Exactly. It forces them and us to see that impressive structures, external beauty, they don't guarantee spiritual safety or permanence. Let's look at the actual exchange, Matthew 24, verses 1 and 2.
Okay. It says, "As Jesus went out from the temple and was proceeding away, his disciples came to him to show to him the buildings of the temple."
And his response, verse 2. "And he answered and said to them, You see all these things, do you not? Truly I say to you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another until all is torn down."
Wow. Just blunt. And that phrase, "not one stone upon another," the Greek apparently makes it super emphatic, right? Like the strongest possible way to say complete, utter ruin.
It signifies total demolition, a complete reversal of Herod's massive building project. And, historically, that's exactly what happened. The Roman general Titus, AD 70, he leveled it. Jesus' prediction was literal and pointed to immediate judgment on that generation in Jerusalem.
So this shocking immediate prediction forces the disciples' next question. They leave the temple area, cross the Kidron Valley, go up the Mount of Olives.
And that location itself is loaded with meaning, isn't it? It's the place Zechariah 14:4 says the Messiah's feet will stand. Acts 1:11, it's where they saw him ascend, where the angel said he'd return.
The perfect spot for this deep prophetic teaching.
And it
leads right into their big question, Matthew 24, verse 3.
Yes, the crucial triple question. It says, "While he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, 'Tell us when these things shall be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age.'"
Okay, 3 parts there. Let's break that down.
Right. First, when these things shall be. They're clearly asking about the temple destruction he just predicted. When is that going to happen?
Makes sense. What's the second part?
Second, what will be the sign of your coming? And here they use a very specific technical Greek word, parousia.
Parousia. Okay, I've heard that. It means more than just arrival, doesn't it?
Oh, much more. In the first century, especially with the Roman emperors, parousia meant an official, public, spectacular visit, like an emperor entering a city he ruled. It screamed authority, power, majesty, often judgment too. They're asking for the sign of his grand kingly appearance.
Got it. And the third part?
Third, they ask about the end of the age. For them, this meant the end of the current wicked era and the beginning of the glorious messianic age they were all anticipating.
Okay, and here's where it gets tricky, right? Because in their minds, these 3 things, temple destroyed, king arrives in glory, new age begins, They probably thought it all happened together, like boom, boom, boom.
Exactly. They likely saw it as one single massive event complex. But Jesus' answer, which spans the rest of chapter 24 and into 25, it seems to blend things. He talks about events related to Jerusalem's fall in AD 70, but also clearly about the ultimate end of history.
That blending is the core interpretive challenge, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and scholars have different ways of approaching it. You
Hmm.
have the preterist view, which basically says almost everything was fulfilled back in AD 70, aimed at that immediate audience.
Right.
Then there's the futurist view, seeing pretty much the whole thing as about the final days right before the second coming.
Right.
And then probably the most common view is the preterist futurist view. This sees Jesus using the AD 70 destruction of Jerusalem as a kind of pattern or a type of the much greater final judgment at the very end of the age.
Ah, okay. So the fall of the temple is like a smaller preview, prefiguring the Great Tribulation later on.
Precisely. It's a historical judgment that foreshadows the ultimate eschatological one. But whichever view you lean towards, the purpose of the discourse seems clear. Jesus is warning and equipping all believers throughout all the ages against deception and for endurance.
So interestingly, Jesus doesn't kick off with, World War III or something. His very first point, the primary warning for this whole period leading up to his return, is about deception.
That's the absolute starting point. Vigilance. Guarding against being misled, it's paramount. Matthew 24, verse 4, and Jesus answered and said to them, "See that no one leads you astray."
And he repeats that warning, doesn't he?
3 times, here in verse 4, then again in verse 11 and verse 24. It hammers home that spiritual deception from outside forces and even from within is the constant primary danger for believers throughout this age.
Okay, so the first specific sign he gives relates to that. False messiahs.
Yes, the first concrete omen, verse 5. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will deceive many.
People claiming his authority, his title.
Exactly, claiming the messianic office for themselves. And history backs this up even before AD 70. Josephus writes about figures like Theudas, promising to part the Jordan River, or Judas the Galilean leading tax revolts. Later, you had the massive Bar Kokhba rebellion around AD 135, fueled by his messianic claims. Jesus is warning, don't get swept up in these localized, political, often nationalistic movements led by false claimants.
Got it. So expect spiritual and political confusion. Then he shifts to the wider world environment instability, things that often cause panic.
Right. He addresses wars, rumors of wars, and natural disasters, verses 6 and 7. For you are about to hear of wars and reports of wars, but see that you are not alarmed, for it must take place, but the end is not yet.
Crucially, the end is not yet.
Key phrase. Then verse 7 continues, for nation will rise up against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places.
So you've got man-made conflict wars and then natural disasters, famines, earthquakes. But the big takeaway from Jesus is
Don't panic.
these things have to happen, but they don't mean the end is tomorrow.
Exactly. Don't get alarmed into thinking every hurricane or conflict means the second coming is imminent. They are necessary, part of the unfolding plan, but they are preliminary. He summarizes their nature in verse 8.
All these things are the beginning of birth pangs.
That analogy is so powerful. Birth pangs involve real pain, intense pain even. But the pain isn't pointless destruction. It's productive agony leading to something glorious, the birth. These signs, Jesus suggests, will likely increase in frequency and intensity as the end draws nearer, just like labor contractions.
So we have external suffering, global instability, but then he turns inward, maybe even more painfully, to the pressures and strife within the community of believers. Persecution is basically guaranteed.
Guaranteed, and global in scope. Verse 9 is stark. Then they will deliver you over into tribulation, and they will kill you, and you will be hated by all the nations because of me.
Hated by all the nations because of me. Martyrdom, suffering. These aren't exceptions for believers. They're expected realities.
And that very persecution acts as a kind of pressure test, doesn't it? It reveals who's genuinely committed.
Which leads to the next painful sign, internal betrayal. The pressure exposes fault lines. Verse 10. And then many will be offended and will betray one another and will hate one another.
That word offended, scandalizo in Greek, it's the root of our word scandal. It means to stumble, to fall away. Persecution causes those with shallow faith, maybe superficial commitment, to stumble, turn against true believers, even actively betray them.
And this internal crisis gets worse because of false teaching inside the community too, right? Not just false messiahs outside,
Well,
verse 11.
And many false prophets will arise and deceive many. Yes. These are people operating within the church, twisting scripture, promoting doctrines of comfort or power that sidestep the call to suffer and endure.
All this strife, internal and external, leads to a general decline in morality and spiritual passion, that coldness of heart. Verse 12 is pretty chilling about the end times atmosphere.
And because of the increase of lawlessness, the love of many will grow cold. Yeah. Lawlessness, anomia, isn't just about breaking traffic laws. It's a deeper rebellion against God's standards. When that becomes rampant, Jesus says the defining mark of his followers, that deep love for one another, he talked about in John 13, it starts to cool off. Real passion gets replaced by just going through the motions, or maybe even cynicism.
Okay, so that's a pretty bleak picture. Deception, war, disasters, persecution, betrayal, false teaching, lawlessness, cold love. It's a lot. But right in the middle of this, Jesus gives a dual mandate and a promise for those who hang in there.
Absolutely. First, the essential virtue, endurance, verse 13. But the one who endures until the end will be saved.
Endurance isn't just passively waiting it out, is it?
No, it implies active faithfulness, perseverance through the trials. It's the proof, the evidence of genuine saving faith that ultimately leads to deliverance.
And the second mandate, the big positive purpose driving this whole age, global evangelism. This has to happen before the end. Verse 14.
And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached into all the world as a testimony unto all the nations, and then the end will come. Yes. The scale is global. The gospel of the kingdom must go out worldwide. Not necessarily converting everyone, but proclaimed as a testimony everywhere to all people groups. That global witness is the final prerequisite before the end arrives.
Okay, so we've got the general signs, the birth pangs characterizing the whole age, but Jesus said those are just the beginning. If all that's preliminary, what's the one specific, unmissable signal that means drop everything and run? He shifts gears here, doesn't he? From general signs to a very specific instruction.
He does. This is the sign they were really asking for back in verse 3. He gets very specific, very solemn. Matthew 24, verse 15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, the one reading, let him understand.
It's significant he directly quotes Daniel and basically says, pay attention, understand this prophecy. Where does that phrase, abomination of desolation, come from in Daniel?
It pops up a few times. Daniel 9.27, 11.31, 12.11. It refers to this ultimate act of desecration, something that profanes God's holy site and signals covenant judgment. Historically, there was a preview, a partial fulfillment.
Right, Antiochus Epiphanes.
Exactly. Around 168 BC, the Syrian ruler Antiochus Epiphanes set up an idol, sacrificed a pig on the altar in the Jerusalem temple, a horrific defilement. But Jesus is pointing beyond that to a future ultimate fulfillment.
And most interpreters see that future fulfillment pointing straight at the final Antichrist figure. Right?
That's the strong consensus. The holy place clearly means the temple, which interestingly implies the temple needs to be rebuilt and functioning at that future time. And this aligns perfectly with 2 Thessalonians 2, which describes the man of lawlessness actually sitting in the temple, proclaiming himself as God. That act of ultimate desecration is the trigger. It marks the start of the final, intense period, the Great Tribulation.
And seeing that specific sign demands immediate, drastic action, especially for people in Judea near Jerusalem. The language is incredibly urgent in verses 16 to 18.
It really is. Then let the ones in Judea flee unto the mountains, verse 17, and let no one upon the housetop come down to take the things out of his house, verse 18, and let no one in the field return to get his cloak.
Let's unpack that urgency. Not going down from the housetop.
Yeah.
What does that imply practically?
Well, in those days, houses often had flat roofs, sometimes connected with external stairs. Jesus is saying, don't even go back inside your house. Flee immediately via the quickest route out across the rooftops, down the outside stairs. Forget your possessions, forget everything, just get out.
Not returning for your cloak if you're in the field. I mean, the cloak was essential, right, for warmth, even as bedding at night.
Absolutely essential. But Jesus says, don't even turn back for that. The priority is instant escape. Speed is everything. It highlights an extreme, unparalleled urgency. Sacrifice everything material for survival.
And he acknowledges how incredibly hard this flight will be and tells them what to pray about regarding the circumstances.
Yeah.
Verses 19 and 20.
Woe to the ones pregnant and to the ones nursing in those days, and pray that your flight will not occur in winter or on the Sabbath. Yeah. The difficulty for pregnant women or mothers with infants is obvious. Fleeing quickly would be almost impossible.
But why pray specifically about winter or the Sabbath?
Winter travel meant facing harsh weather, cold, rain, maybe impassable roads or wadis. It would slow everyone down, increase danger. And the Sabbath, Well, Jewish tradition limited travel distance on the Sabbath. More practically, a mass exodus on the Sabbath would immediately attract unwanted attention from authorities or enemies still around, making the escape far more perilous. They needed to slip away quickly and discreetly, if possible. And the reason for this desperate, urgent flight, it's what comes next, the Great Tribulation. Jesus describes it in absolutely unprecedented terms in verse 21. For then there will be great tribulation, as such has not occurred from the beginning of the world until the present, nor ever will be.
That statement is just staggering. Think about all the horrors of history. Genocides, plagues, world wars. Jesus says this period will be worse than anything before or after. Unimaginable suffering.
It's so severe, in fact, that human survival itself hangs in the balance. It requires direct divine intervention. Verse 22, and unless those days are shortened, no flesh will be saved, but because of the elect, those days will be shortened.
Shortened. The Greek word kolabu means like cut off or amputated, right? God has to step in and curtail it, otherwise no one would survive physically.
Exactly. Saved here means physical preservation. If God let it run its full potential course, human life would be extinguished. But for the sake of the elect, he cuts it short.
And given the focus on Judea, the temple, the context, the elect here are generally understood to be the faithful remnant of Israel, right? Those chosen for deliverance through this time.
That's the common interpretation in this specific context, yes. Now, because this time is so chaotic and desperate, the warnings about deception come back strongly. People will be grasping for any hope, any deliverer.
Which is why Jesus hammers home. Ignore anyone claiming to be the Messiah locally or secretly. Verse 23 and 24. Then if anyone says to you, behold, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him, for false Christs and false prophets will appear.
And notice this chilling part. And perform great signs and wonders so that to deceive, if possible, even the elect ones. These false figures won't just be smooth talkers. They'll have real supernatural power behind them, doing miracles.
Wow, that's terrifying. But he says, if possible, implying the true elect can't ultimately be deceived.
It seems so. They are protected. But the danger is real, hence the explicit warning in verse 26. If, therefore, they say to you, behold, he is in the desert, do not go out, or behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it.
Why those specific locations, the desert or inner rooms?
Well, the desert might evoke a new Moses figure, leading people out into the wilderness for safety, like the Exodus story. Inner rooms suggests someone hidden away, a secret leader, maybe a cult figure, requiring initiation to see. It implies a localized, non-public appearance.
And the whole point is that the true coming, the parousia, will be the absolute opposite of that. Not local, not secret.
Exactly. It will be universal, public, instantaneous, and utterly unmistakable. Verse 27 gives that brilliant analogy. For just as the lightning comes out from the east and flashes to the west, in this manner will the coming of the Son of Man be.
You can't miss lightning flashing across the whole sky. Everyone sees it simultaneously.
That's the picture. Sudden, visible everywhere, self-evident. No need for announcements or directions. And this is immediately followed by a stark, almost grim proverb about judgment in verse 28.
Where the corpse is, there the vultures will gather together.
It's an ancient saying, basically. Judgment is obvious. When something is dead, the scavengers show up. You don't need to wonder where the judgment has fallen. The results are unmistakable.
Then, immediately after this tribulation period, the description shifts to the cosmos itself. The universe seems to unravel. Verse 29.
And immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heaven will be shaken. Yeah, this is heavy prophetic language, echoing the Old Testament prophets like Isaiah and Joel talking about the day of the Lord. It sounds like a terrifying, perhaps literal disruption of the heavens themselves, signaling God's arrival on the scene.
And then comes the ultimate moment, the glorious appearance. Verse 30, and then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the sign of the Son of Man coming upon the clouds of the sky with power and great glory.
This is it, the parousia fulfilled, visible to everyone. Revelation 1.7 says, every eye will see him. And the mourning, that's the world realizing, too late, who they rejected. The King is back, in overwhelming power and glory.
The final action described in this section is the gathering of the elect. Verse 31, and he will send his angels with a great trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from the ends of heaven until the ends of the earth.
Now, it's important to be clear who is likely being gathered here. Given the consistent focus throughout the discourse on Israel, Judea, the remnant, many interpreters distinguish this gathering from the church's rapture, which Paul discusses elsewhere. This angelic gathering with a great trumpet is often seen as the physical regathering of the dispersed, faithful remnant of Israel from all over the world, bringing them back to the land for the establishment of the kingdom.
Okay, so we've journeyed through the signs, the specific trigger, the tribulation, the cosmic events, the glorious return. Now, Jesus pivots again, doesn't he? He moves from prophecy to practical command. And it all centers on this tension. We know it's coming, but we absolutely do not know when. The bottom line, be ready.
Exactly. He starts with an analogy, the fig tree, to explain that while you can't know the exact date, you can know the season. Verses 32 and 33. Now learn the parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near.
Simple observation. Buds on a fig tree mean summer's close.
In the same manner, even you, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at the doors. So the signs he just listed, deception, wars, persecution, the abomination, they're like the budding fig tree. They tell you the end is approaching, very near. Even if you can't pinpoint the day, the signs define the season.
And just to underscore how certain this prophetic roadmap is, he makes this absolutely incredible statement in verse 35.
It's one of the strongest affirmations imaginable. The heaven and the earth will pass away, but my words will never, ever pass away.
Wow. The entire physical universe is temporary, he says, but these words he's speaking right now, they are eternal, unshakable, authoritative forever.
But then, immediately after stressing that certainty, comes the verse stating the clear limitation on timing. This is one of the most discussed verses theologically, verse 36. But as for that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father.
Okay, hold on. How can Jesus, if he's divine and he just claimed his words are eternal, say he doesn't know the day or hour? That seems like a contradiction.
It's a profound mystery tied to the incarnation. When Jesus became human, he voluntarily limited the independent use of some of his divine attributes. It's sometimes called kenosis, based on Philippians 2. While on earth, in his role as the Son submitted to the Father, he accepted this limitation on his knowledge regarding the exact timing. It speaks to his genuine humanity and his submission within the Trinity during his earthly mission.
Okay, that helps frame it. So because the timing is fundamentally unknowable to us, and even to him in his earthly state, the entire focus has to shift to preparedness.
Yeah.
And he illustrates the suddenness using Noah's day.
Right. And the key points from the Noah comparison are the normality of life right up until the end, and the complete unpreparedness of the world. Verses 37 to 79. For just as in the days of Noah, so will it be with the coming of the Son of Man.
How were things in Noah's day?
For as they were in those days before the flood, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day Noah entered into the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and took them all away, so will it be with the coming of the Son of Man.
So life just went on. People weren't necessarily doing overtly wicked things in this description. They were just absorbed in everyday life, eating, drinking, family life. Totally oblivious to the impending judgment until it swept them away. The comparison isn't to Noah in the ark, but to the masses outside.
Precisely. They were taken away by the flood judgment. And that context is crucial for understanding the next verses about separation, verses 40 and 41. Then 2 men will be in the field, 1 will be taken and 1 will be left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, 1 will be taken and the other 1 left.
Now, this is often where people picture the rapture, the righteous being taken up. But if the comparison is Noah's day, where the unrighteous were taken by the flood,
then the interpretation flips, doesn't it? If those taken away in Noah's time were taken in judgment, then it's very likely that the ones taken here in verses 40 and 41 are also taken in judgment when the Son of Man returns. They're suddenly removed. The ones left are left to enter the kingdom age. It emphasizes the swift, sudden separation based on preparedness.
So the practical punchline, the core command from all this uncertainty about timing, is simple vigilance. Verse 42.
Therefore, be watching, because your Lord is coming at such a day that you do not know.
Yeah. And watching isn't passive sky-gazing. It's active readiness. Staying spiritually alert, morally pure, diligently doing what you're supposed to be doing.
He doubles down on this with the thief analogy, right? You don't know when a thief is coming, so you have to be constantly ready. Verses 43 and 44.
But know this thing, that if the owner of the house had known at what night watch the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. So you also must be prepared, because the Son of Man will come in an hour when you do not expect.
Exactly. The thief imagery highlights the unexpectedness for those who aren't ready. Constant vigilance is the only defense.
Okay, and this leads into the final and maybe the most pointed parable of the chapter. It shifts the focus entirely from when the master returns to how the servants behave during the delay. This feels like the core application, the parable of the faithful and unfaithful slaves.
This is really where it hits home. Who is the faithful slave? Verses 45 and 46 define him by his actions, not just his waiting. Who then is the faithful and wise slave, whom the master appoints over his household servants and gives them food in the proper time? And blessed is that servant whom, when his master comes, he will find doing in this manner.
So faithfulness and wisdom are shown by doing the job, caring for others, managing responsibilities, distributing the food, physical or spiritual provision appropriately, even when the master is gone for a long time. He's found working. And the reward, verse 47 says he'll be put in charge of all the master's possessions. Promotion.
But then there's the contrast, the unfaithful slave, and his problem starts in his heart based on the delay, verses 48 and 49. But if that evil slave says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming.
It starts with that cynical thought, he's not coming back anytime soon.
And that thought leads directly to wicked actions. And he will begin to beat his fellow slaves and eat and drink with the drunkards.
Okay, let's translate that. Beating his fellow slaves. What does that look like today? It's not just physical violence, presumably.
No. It likely represents abusing authority, neglecting spiritual responsibilities, treating others harshly or unjustly within the community of faith, exploiting power, becoming domineering, failing to care for those entrusted to you, all because you think the master isn't watching or isn't coming back soon to hold you accountable.
And eating and drinking with the drunkards. Again, probably more than just literal partying.
Probably signifies a broader moral and ethical compromise, worldliness, laziness, abandoning the standards of the master's household and just blending in with the self-indulgent, irresponsible patterns of the world around you because, hey, the master's delayed, right? No immediate consequences.
And the consequence for that slave, the one whose heart was corrupted by the delay, it's terrifying.
It brings the theme of judgment full circle right back to the start of the discourse, verses 50 and 51. The master of that slave will come in a day when he is not prepared and in an hour which he does not know. The timing is unexpected for him.
And the judgment.
And he will cut him into pieces and assign his part with the hypocrites, where there will be the crying and the grinding of teeth. Utterly devastating judgment. He's not just fired, he's destroyed. And notice where he's placed? With the hypocrites. His actions revealed his heart. His outward appearance of being a servant masked an inner rebellion. He wasn't truly faithful.
Wow. That is a chilling end to the parable. And really a powerful summary of the whole discourse's practical point.
It really is. Vigilance isn't ultimately about cracking the prophetic code. It's about faithful living, day by day, especially during the delay. The faithful slave was found doing, the unfaithful one was found exploiting and indulging.
So this deep dive into Matthew 24, it's been intense. We see the signs of the season unfolding, the birth pangs, eventually the abomination. But that final day or hour, still hidden, purposefully.
Exactly, and that tension is the point. The discourse wasn't given just to satisfy our curiosity about the future, it was given to fortify us, to protect us from deception, prepare us for hardship, and motivate us to endure faithfully. The core message is, keep serving, keep loving, keep watching actively, no matter how long it seems.
Which brings us back to that final, really challenging thought from the last parable. If we're serious about being ready, we have to ask ourselves, are there ways we are acting like that unfaithful slave? Are there areas where, maybe subtly, we're thinking the master's delaying, and so we beat fellow slaves through neglect, harsh words, or misuse of influence? Or where we eat and drink with the drunkards by compromising our standards, getting lazy, prioritizing comfort over calling?
Because the parable warns that kind of hypocrisy, rooted in the assumption of delay, leads to disaster. The call is for immediate, wise, active vigilance. Always.
A profound challenge indeed. Something to really reflect on until our next deep dive.